information technology. She, as I said, is the lead audit manager of cybersecurity. She oversees development, implementation of IT processes, effectiveness and efficiency initiatives, as well as assessment, mitigation of cybersecurity risk and compliance issues. She leverages her technical communication and training skills to facilitate best practices and standards across the organization and external stakeholders. What she didn't add to her bio is she does sit on the local WEC's board. She teaches at Harris Stowe and Maryville, and she, again, has a pretty big title at a banking institute that you probably all know that I'm not going to mention, but I just don't understand how you can do everything she does. And she said yes to being our keynote speaker here today. So I'm very honored to have her here today. She is going to speak on the apps are listening, old school security versus new school risk in the age of digital defiance and foreign surveillance. So everyone, let's welcome Renita Rhodes to the stage.
Hello, everybody. I was thinking it was on my mic. I started talking out there, but so as you notice, as Kim stated, yes, on the way here, first it was cars driving extremely slow. And I'm like, move out the way. And then as I get on 270, there is a funeral procession, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then, so I'm trying to calm down. So how are you guys today? Good. And what I plan to talk about, I have notes here. I also made sure I did that as well, try to make sure I was prepared, being that if there were any technical difficulties, sometimes that happened. But thank you for attending. I'm trying to calm down. Now, what I'm going to talk about is really kind of like an old topic, if you think about it. I'm talking about the apps that we have on our phone. But I'm not coming from a personal standpoint. The thing is that what we've noticed lately with the apps that are coming out now, they may pose some risk for our companies. I mean, of course, we don't think about that. I mean, a lot of us work in larger organizations, but there are some organizations that aren't as large as, especially one that I work at. And they may not have all the security measures in place that we all have. So, what I'm going to discuss today is the apps. They're listening. It's basically old school security versus new school risk in the age of digital defiance. You guys kind of figure out why I said this part with the digital defiance and foreign surveillance. Sorry, I'm trying to move forward. Okay. So I kind of discussed what I'm going to talk about. So some of these apps that we happen to have now that are currently being promoted, well, it's proliferating within our environment, are apps that are AI-driven. There are apps that a lot of us tend to think, oh, it's TikTok. TikTok, I'm not just going to talk about the TikTok ban. I'm not just talking about that. But there are more. The reason I'm bringing these up is because people are downloading different things on their phones. And we have BYOD. But as I stated, it's not just personal issues risk that I see. Working as an auditor, I tend to look at the different risks that can come into the network in general. So, as Kim, she did give some of my background. In addition to some of the work that I've been doing at my institution, I don't say the name because of compliance reasons. And I also lately have been looking at our AI and ML models and even what we're doing with quantum computing. So this is in addition to what I've been working on. As she stated, there is quite a bit that I do. I don't want to go totally into it, but I do sit on some other boards. I sit on CyberUp. I sit on MOBAP, so I do bring some healthcare into it as well. And on a couple of colleges, Maryville and my alma mater, Tennessee State University, College of Engineering. And I'm from Michigan. And so one of the high schools there, they have a IT program. So it's Farmington Hills Public Schools. I also advise them on their programs as well. So why did I decide, I hope I have so many notes. Why is this topic important? So, cyber threats today have evolved. It's not just, like I said, we're not just dealing with the apps of 2010 when we first started doing like the security awareness training. During that time frame, we were mainly looking at just risks on here. You were looking at the apps like, what type of access do they have? And then they would kind of discuss what steps you need to take personally for yourself. Now, with the apps that we have today, attackers are now leveraging AI-powered tools to analyze vast amounts of data to predict our behavior and to execute highly targeted attacks. So with the rise of these foreign apps that we're seeing out here now, TikTok, Note. Anybody know what Note is? Did you download it? Anybody download it? Good. I'm just say that. Do you know where it's from? Okay, good. Yeah, so this is why I was talking about the Defiance. Because in January, during the TikTok ban, we had a lot of people downloading it. And they do have jobs. And I'm quite sure their jobs allow them to log onto their networks. And what kind of potential threats do you guys think could be out there if they're logging in? Mm-hmm. Yep. So this is why I brought this up. As I was talking, I kind of vaguely went over this in the past. If you guys can see in the past, the evolution of the security awareness for training for mobile apps. We were reviewing app permissions, avoiding untrusted software. That was in early 2010s. Then as we go through looking at the comprehensive training we're talking about malware, recognizing phishing, app permissions. Then we moved into the risk of untrusted apps and actually performing updates. Now we have the threats of AI and data exfiltration and surveillance. Digital defiance, as I said, I saw a lot of it because people were upset about the TikTok ban. And as we know, the TikTok ban, most people, when you think of TikTok, what do you think of it? What do you think it's used for? Well, as far as users for, here in this. Yeah, most people think it's dance videos. It's a lot more there. Some people, they had something recently called Hillman Talk, where a lot of professors were on there providing different education for the topics that they were teaching on. So it's a lot of information that you can find. But with the TikTok ban, you happen to have a lot of people, you have Gen Z, Gen Alpha, millennials, everyone is on there. But I would say the kids today, they do not want any rules. We all know that. We all know that if you happen to have kids, especially the younger generations. So, despite the fact that TikTok was banned, it's a lot of people, social media influencers making money, but they were beginning to question their civil liberties as far as what they can do as far as downloading apps. Because they're like, this is mine. I should be able to do this. China is not looking into us. They have this whole perception that we are not under, like, China isn't an adversary. But they are. Now, I heard that you guys had a discussion about QR codes earlier. I don't know if you guys are going to do this then. I was trying to do a live poll, but being that also my presentation does not have, it's not a PowerPoint right now. I can't actually go to it and show you. But if you humor me and go to use Mentimeter, I have certain questions throughout where I was asking questions, and like this one, like which apps do you think would be considered have more of a security risk? And I'm going to do it myself because I have I have 3 different apps on here. These apps are TikTok, DeepSeek, RedNote. Are you guys doing it? Or no, you don't want to? Okay. Now I understand we are all in cyber, so. Pardon? It's not. So of those 3, how many people think TikTok is the most risky? 1, 2, 3. Okay. How about RedNote? 1, 2. That many? 3. How about DeepSeek? That's exactly what I picked. Because when you're dealing with that one, it's kind of more the AI generated. But before I get into that, I'm going to go into why this would have been if you guys would have gone through and did the live. I was trying to keep you all involved. Now, with RedNote, with those who know what RedNote is, it's kind of like TikTok, it's kind of like Instagram, Pinterest, but because it's a combination. So, as I stated, during that transition, there were loads of people going to RedNote because of the fact that it was similar to TikTok. And there were people out here that were telling them, do not download that app. Don't download the app. They were like, they didn't believe anything that anybody in cyber said about it at all. And I do know one woman, she was actually hacked. Someone got into her account, her personal account, just based off of this app. And the reasons why they got into this app is because of, like the guy in the maroon shirt stated, is because China happens to have, if you're operating in their country, you have to allow them access to your network and to your data. And same thing goes with these phones. What Red Note does is, it's more likely backdoors on their apps for them to gain access. But the thing is, the kids didn't care. There are 3 million monthly active users on this app. And if I was you guys, if you have kids, go ahead and check and see if they have it. But so China, if you notice, they are pretty much they're creating a lot of different apps out here now. But as I was stating, because of that law, there are different controversies around it. Data segmentation. Unlike TikTok, Red Note does not have data segmentation. All of your data is stored in China. TikTok, I did mention, it's going to be later on, but they did start storing your data here in Texas with Oracle, but Red Note does not. Their monitoring practices. Red Note also stores, let me make sure I've got the right section. I have quite a bit. So Red Note, they really don't let you know what they're actually monitoring on your phone. They pretty much just basically state that, this is the type of information that you may have, but more than likely they are just taking information, your phone's metadata, and storing that information and making predictions about you, because they also use AI. As far as privacy, some of the information that they are tracking includes location information, so it is monitoring your movements in real time. As I said, the metadata is capturing your device details, the Wi-Fi, and the network interactions. And also making predictions based on your browsing, your interactions, and different purchases. Red Note, like TikTok, allows you to buy things. So it has access to your financial information. Surveillance. We already discussed this. The fact that China has that capability due to their intelligence data laws, they can provide user data. Well, you provide them user data upon request, unlike the US. Unauthorized data breaches, with no segmentation, a breach of their systems can compromise all that data. And as a comparing it to TikTok, the only way, as of now, they have Project Texas. Now, when you compare the two of these apps, Red Note is in red. If you notice here, it is more risky. So with the hidden data collection, 95%. There is the cross-device data sharing. So if you're using it on multiple apps, it's there as well. Predictive movement, AI tracking, data segmentation, and Chinese data access. So it is more risky. Now, the government haven't looked into that one just yet. Yes?
So this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but if you take the word China out of this, how is this different from your Facebook? That's straight and all.
Can you repeat his question so our
Okay.
virtual attendees can hear?
Okay, he said, how is this app different from Facebook or any other U.S. apps if we remove the word China? I'm going to talk about that. Because there was something that came out not too long ago, and I'm just like, oh, what? Facebook is taking that information? So I guess I could kind of segue into it. Facebook, they do take a lot of our information. As far as, I think the one that I thought was a little bit more egregious was Messenger.
Who was asking the question?
Something I might add is the fact that the PRC government has access to the data that could be used for targeting by foreign intelligence services, whereas Facebook would just send the metadata to legitimate U.S. companies to target you with ads instead. So one might be a phishing campaign versus, an ad for, a sale at the grocery store.
That's true. That is true, because if you're dealing with foreign apps, they could be using it for targeting, for one, to gather a lot of information about you and to make assumptions or get people to do things that they normally would not. And I'm going to get into this later on, too, that China isn't the only country that we need to worry about in this regards, because apps are developed everywhere. Now, we talked about DeepSeek earlier. DeepSeek has the exact same issues. I'm not going to totally go into everything in regards to what's going on with China and the laws. But DeepSeek, as we know, is an AI tool. It's like ChatGPT. And with ChatGPT, I know my organization has it blocked. Have you guys gotten around to blocking DeepSeek? Okay. Everyone? Good. Good. Because if you're going to block ChatGPT, this one is totally based in China, and it has already been hacked, I think, within the first weekend. So it's no purpose. I mean, I wouldn't use it. And this one, as well as, I would say, just like TikTok, just like Red people are downloading it because they're upset about the U.S. taking away their liberties of downloading stuff. But in this age that we're living in, a lot of people want to be the first to do something. Oh, I downloaded DeepSeek, it's doing this, it's doing that. I remember talking to a friend of mine who's a CISO elsewhere, and he basically, we were kind of discussing it, and he said, I haven't downloaded it yet. I need to download it to my bootleg phone, like he has another phone that he uses. And I was thinking, I wouldn't do it myself, but I guess he wants to go there and try to kind of do some reverse engineering of it. Now, I could see if you do it in an environment where, like a VMware environment where you're going to do reverse engineering. I just wouldn't do it personally on my personal phone, even if it is a burner phone. So again, it's an emerging technology. And like I said, I'm not going to go totally into it because we already have a bunch of people know about it. But did you know that DeepSeek has surpassed ChatGPT in a number of the most downloaded AI apps? People are downloading it. So this is why I wanted to bring it up, is because people, no matter what, they're at risk, but they could potentially make you guys at risk. Of course, there's the data collection issues. There's data synchronization. Again, we still had the privacy and the foreign intelligence for surveillance. So in addition to those, I would say some of the key risk also includes behavior profiling. So just based off of what you're doing, what you're searching, what you're pulling up, they can basically profile you. And then they know who to target and what you're doing. It also pulls location data. So to me, I just would not download it. I hope you guys aren't bored with this topic. So, as far as DeepSeek, based on what it's tracking versus like some of the other apps, of course, it can do Wi-Fi tracking, so it can detect nearby networks. Well, as TikTok, Messenger, they can do that. DeepSeek can't invert it. As far as the other apps for Bluetooth tracking, it can scan the TikTok and Messenger, they can scan nearby devices. DeepSeek, it tracks that device over time. Location services. Facebook, I would say, they need permission. You need to allow them those permissions. DeepSeek does not. It predicts it. Behavioral learning. The other apps is kind of limited in their usage of your information for patterns. But as far as DeepSeek, it learns what you're doing daily. It learns when you wake up. It learns when you're, different places. So even in my car, I have a Tesla. When I get in my car, it knows exactly where I'm going. If I'm going to work, depending on the time of day. So it learned my behavior. When I would go work out, it just say go to this location, and I would have to stop it sometimes, but it is also using AI. Just think of DeepSeek as doing that same thing, especially with you going into the office. Now, do you want an app like that having access to where your location? Like say if somebody's working in a data center. It's not like all our organizations are using skiffs to put your phones up. We got into this law earlier, so I don't have to totally go into it anymore. What I wanted you guys to know, as I said, China is not the only only country that has laws like these. Russia, India, Iran, North Korea, Saudi Arabia all have laws like China. So if you're thinking about these different apps or different organizations you're working with, you have to take into account what their data laws may be and how they're actually tracking that data, and they could potentially get access to your networks because you're working with these companies and they're getting access to your network and data. Do you want them to have that? As far as that TikTok case, I skipped the other slide because we already discussed it. Although with TikTok, what they did, with Project Texas, they went ahead and did some data localization. So all of our data here is just stored here. And I've seen from my prior jobs, working with third parties, that's what we look for. We're like, yeah, our data's safe because we have our data in the cloud within the United States. I know with FedRAMP also requires that. If you're working with certain government clouds, their data had to remain in the United States. But it has come out that just because you've done that and you're dealing with an app or a company that's in China or any of those other countries that I showed, your data still may not be safe, even though they still may be able to gain access to that data that's here, even though it's stored here in the United States because of their laws. So that was something that I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Even with me dealing with privacy laws in the past, like I said, that was something I just took under I just basically thought, and like I said, my team pretty much thought that our data was safe. It has also stated that former employees have stated that our data is still stored, some of our data is still stored over there in China. Now, from this, do you guys happen to have policies restricting employees from using these type of apps? Not DeepSeek. I already know you guys have that. TikTok or Renita. Can they get on in, like say if they're on their on the network, not on the main network. If they're using BYOD, can they still gain access to apps like TikTok or Renita? Messenger, Facebook Messenger, they can? So, not going to totally go into this. I just wanted to give you guys some more indication. We all know about the Restrict Act. We should probably know about the Data Act. In 2024, there's an AI ban proposal to try to ban certain apps from foreign governments, well, apps from different countries that are AI. Now, we do happen to have two different proposals out there. One is the no DeepSeek on the government devices. It has been banned. And then also we have Josh Hawley. He created another Senate bill to prohibit DeepSeek in general from anybody downloading it in this country. And if so, it's being criminalized and impose penalties up to $100 million in fines and 20 years in prison. So I know no one in this room is at risk, but I know there are some people who have downloaded it. Now, we all are in technology. We're all in cyber. But will you guys, like based on this, do you guys think that certain apps need to be banned in general? Overwhelmingly? Now, can y'all raise your hand again? For those who said Messenger, you have Messenger, you allow it on your network, they have BYOD. So, what I found, and as the gentleman stated over there, our US apps are allowing this information. The only thing we have to kind of make it a little safer is that they have to abide by US laws. But the thing is, and I initially saw this on Instagram, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that. I use Messenger all the time with my family. But Facebook Messenger, it engages in extensive data collection. It has a similar risk as the other ones. Messenger can scan Wi-Fi networks and map it. We map those devices. It gathers metadata. It tracks your location, even when you're not sharing it. It can also track Bluetooth. So I'm not sure I would allow this, even in BYOD. Because if you think about just the app, I mean, I know it's on a BYOD network, and it's on a public network that's kind of segmented away from everything else, but they're still getting some information about your network. So Messenger, what it's pulling It can detect your SSID, the MAC addresses, the router types. It can scan the Bluetooth devices, the names, the MAC addresses, pretty much the same thing. If those network, anything on that particular network is there, it's on, it can map it. So routers, workstations, firewalls, access points. It also sends and analyzes data aggregation users, information, of course, for targeted ads. But it introduces risk of unauthorized data collection, network snooping, metadata exploitation, whether you have encryption or not. So, of course, we need to have certain policies in place to strengthen it, strengthen your protection, and those are all located on the right side. So I would say, of course, network segmentation. Most of us are doing if you're in a larger organization. How many are in smaller organizations, in the cities? So those that are in cities, okay, you say you're in a city. How large is your city? Oh, no, do you work there? Okay. Okay. I don't want to go into like the security posture of the organization, but is it open?
We try to avoid.
Okay. So I know like in some of the rural areas, those cities you have maybe one person or two people in the IT network and also trying to be working at cyber. So I'm not sure they have their network set up the way we do. Nonprofit organizations, they may not have it as well. How large is your organization? Oh, okay. And you, right behind you, yes. So I don't want to put your organization at risk, but do you guys happen to have some of the mitigations in place to kind of avoid some of this? Good, okay. I'm just trying to make sure and like if you go out to rural Missouri or other rural areas in this country, they don't have it. Or colleges, universities, school districts. I have a question for the gentleman by the door. You're looking away, yes. When you were working in school districts or universities, how would you say the posture was with kind of stopping some of this?
Based off the appetite of the leadership,
It was pretty open.
yeah, they had a high appetite, so they wanted us to allow things that allowed the students to have a good experience. So we couldn't restrict a lot of things, and as you mentioned before, they want to use social media and things like that. So we had to accept that risk.
So, I'm not sure if you're still there, but if they're accepting that risk, now, like I said, most of the people that were downloading this, Red Note and DeepSeek are probably college students. How do you feel about that?
Well, from a faculty member perspective, I don't think I like it because a lot of the assignments you're receiving now, they come from AI. So from that perspective, but the other part of it, I think it's one of those things where it's not a problem now, but it could become a problem later. And we have to be proactive in getting in front of this so it's not a big issue or it doesn't have this major impact in the future.
Now, those who are with organizations that are 100, like you say, you have 100 people. Have you guys also reached out to Maryville University? Because if you need help, they do have a SOC. So that's just some more information to put out there because they can help with things like this. Now, this other case, Strava, do anybody remember this? So this case, what happened with this was that in 2018, locations and layouts of the U.S. military bases were mapped, and they were publicly shared. Basically, it's a fitness app. So with the fitness app, no one thinks anything about that. But if you are at a location like the military, somebody could gather that information and map your location. That same issue can happen in our organizations because they were using GPS locations. Facebook uses it, Rednote uses it, TikTok uses it, DeepSeek uses it. This is why I brought this up, is because in addition to looking at the patterns of AI can take that information and come up with and map your location. And I'm sure you guys don't want people to know that at all. When I worked at Scott Air Force Base, we were told not to bring Fitbits because of this issue. Now, again, I kept talking about the bring your own device stuff because, again, there are some really small network organizations. And with the way these apps are set up, you can have some network mapping and exposure. There could be data leakage. And of course, you happen to have the issues regarding regulatory and compliance. And depending on where you're working, if you're in a school, you have to deal with FERPA. If you're in a hospital, HIPAA. Then retail, and pretty much all of our organizations, we have to deal with CCPA, because we have people there. If that information gets out, you're going to pay a fine. And then if you're international and dealing with companies out in Britain, then the GDPR. So these apps, I just want people to realize that depending on what you're doing and allowing into your network, you could be putting yourself at risk because of the way these apps are being developed nowadays, and AI is taking over and is doing a lot more than what we even know. I'm not sure if you can see all of this. I was just trying to come up with a map of all the potential issues that were out there dealing with this type of stuff, and kind of when you're dealing with these apps, you're also dealing with third parties. So this is just like anything you're able to deal with when you're dealing with these things. So, mitigation strategies. As far as, to address some of this, of course, I'm sure we're kind of implementing zero trust. You say, of course? Okay. And then if you are using I know some companies still allow people, they give people their phones. And I remember when I had mine, it was kind of open and we were able to download certain things. So we didn't have like whitelisted apps at that time. So you just make sure they're enforcing mobile device management. Of course, if it's with your personal phones, use containerization, network segmentation. Most of this stuff is, like I said, is old school, mechanisms to kind of deal with these new risks. And then DNS layering and AI-driven anomaly detection. Are we all using AI anomaly detections now? Okay. And then, of course, security awareness. We have to upgrade that training. Now, I've already asked this question. That is pretty much it. Do you guys happen to have any questions in regards to, well, based on this, do you think you will kind of lock down your networks for some of the things that you're allowing in? Yeah, I would say, I mean, I know we're blocking ChatGPT, but Facebook Messenger, I don't know if we need to allow it.
I have some online questions. This is from Keith Cheresco. Does Facebook provide any data to any adversaries of the U.S., China, Russia, North Korea?
Have they?
Yes.
In the past. That was kind of dealing with that, which
If you have any questions, wait for the mic.
who mentioned it?
Cambridge Analytica.
Yes, that's what it was, Cambridge Analytica. I do remember that. Yes.
We have one in the back, Claire? Right over here.
So we have our own separate network for end users for BYOD, and it is totally firewalled off from our corporate network. But from what you've said, these AI-driven apps can use those programs on their phones to find out the IP address and information on our corporate network, even though they're totally separated.
So it would be, I would say for that particular network, the user network that you have, so anything that's mapped to that, so I would say it would probably go up to that firewall, so whatever's being, what's the word? Yes, whatever's being segmented, so up into that particular firewall, that IP address that's transmitting, it'll probably get that. But then if it's other people that's also connected, it can pull their information as well. And if you happen to have like any access points or anything on there, just anything within that network, it could potentially map it.
We have a question in the back.
Hi, Renita. I don't know if the person that invented the I accept button was the smartest person in the world or the biggest conspirator in the world. Do you have any housekeeping suggestions for, I mean, I see people all the time with hundreds and hundreds of apps. They don't use them. They're still running, all this other stuff. Any housekeeping on what we should do to clean up our lives, our phones?
Now, I will say now, at least iPhone, that's what I use. They do, if I'm not using the app, I think I have about 7 pages that I'm going through, but it removes it from your phone. But I will surely say people should clean up their phones. If you're not using certain apps, remove them, because as time progresses, if you kind of start looking at stuff, you look at everything that you're allowing them to have access to, and then when they do updates, you still may be allowing more information, allowing them more access than what you really want them to have, especially today. Like I said, with Red Note, we don't know everything that they're allowing. With DeepSeek, we don't know everything that they're able to get. I mean, they're able to get metadata and from your phone. So even in those networks, I know those networks are segmented off. They can find some type of, we don't know what all they can do. It's still new. I mean, because DeepSeek came out, what, last month? Red Note, I'm not exactly sure, you know. It's been out since, I think, that one has been out longer, but we didn't use it until January. So I would say we're still probably trying to figure out everything that it has access to. But as far as the housekeeping, remove stuff, remove it.
We have another virtual. This is from David Nazor. How can individuals and enterprises balance the convenience of modern apps with the need for data security and privacy in an era of growing digital surveillance?
So if I'm figuring out their question, I would say they probably, if they're gonna allow some of that, it needs to be tested first, probably in a environment that's kind of like in your offensive security, where they're, with that offensive security team, where they're actually going through and testing everything, if they're trying to break stuff to make sure and see all the vulnerabilities that are out there before they allow it into their network.
I think we have one back here. And, Claire.
I had a similar question to his question over here. The authorization seems to be broken, the ANA model, authorization, authentication. My neighbor's like 10-year-old kid can talk through the window to Alexa, and that's authorization. Now, any of the authentication that is daisy-chained through any other IoT devices is now susceptible.
Yeah.
Is there any software that maps the telemetry of the authorization and authentication that a user personally has that can maybe pull back a report so that we can monitor that? And then myself personally run an audit of your own personal exposure, maybe on a regular basis. But, Shodan does your network, Delete Me, can go out and look at some things. But it would be interesting to have a live, interactive map it now. What is that authorization and authentication, and how many parties does it daisy chain through from social media or wherever else through IoT devices?
Yeah, that would be good. And I think, like, I just know some of the, I'm not trying to give out our information, but we do happen to have some other anomaly, like AI, ML models that we have out there, some anomaly detections that do go through and try to find certain information to kind of find like some user activity, what's going on. And so I would say if there are other tools out there that are like that, or if they're not, then kind of try to make them yourself if you happen to have a team to do that type of data science and development. Because there are capabilities that can be done to find some of that.
If I delete an app, is it really deleted?
I would probably say that it still goes in line with you deleting something off your regular computer. It can always do with, they can probably pull it back up depending on what you're doing with it, unless you wipe it totally. Yes, I would say that's probably the only thing to get rid of it totally. But with these new tools, well, these new apps that are coming out, I don't know. Yes?
Okay, cool. How do you feel about ChatGPT and like the integration with iPhones now?
I really haven't used it just yet, but well,
Now you can
yeah.
to integrate versus an app.
Yeah, and I haven't done that. Oh, I'm sorry for his question was, how do I feel about the integration with ChatGPT and AI? In iPhones. If you don't want it, I wouldn't allow it. But I think if the capability is on your phone, it's almost like having the app downloaded. It's probably be the same even with Starlink, because it's being offered on the phones now as well. Anyone else? I mean, I hope this, I tried to come up with something that was new. I mean, that was up to date. And I know there's a lot of stuff going on right now in regards to cybersecurity from the federal level. So I don't want to get totally into that because that becomes political. Anyone else or? Okay.
I see him.
He's coming. Okay.
First, thank you for being here. I get stressed out in regular traffic, so appreciate it. Talking about like specifically AI, it seems like, I mean, we can block the different applications and things like that, but to me, it seems like maybe the toothpaste is out of the tube and we're not going to get it back in, and we're just going to have more and more instances of these to where blocking is going to be not an effective strategy. So just kind of curious what your thoughts are on what maybe the next strategy is going to be, or what we need to be thinking about now for when there's too many things to block. There's too many things to just go after with your basic security controls.
Okay, so his question was, being that we have a proliferation of apps, and, oh, he was on there. I don't have to repeat it. Everyone heard him. What I would say is, the first thing that came to my mind, in which I hated it when I was at Scott Air Force Base, was not allowing the phones in. I hated that, but I don't want to be that way because, you know, we can't work totally. I don't know if anybody in here is a robot and they just totally work the entire time and not take a break. But outside of blocking, we're just going to constantly have something new coming up. I guess the one way we would have to have somebody kind of up to speed, staying current with everything that's popping up. And that's the only way I could see someone kind of, how we can potentially deal with that. Kind of like that offensive security team. They could potentially stay up to date because I know they are out there looking at a lot of the vulnerabilities. And I can see it falling on them. But then, of course, they need to work with the risk team, or the team that's coming up with the policies, so that they need to work hand in hand, so they can kind of come together and let employees know what they can and can't do. Well, governance team. Okay. This was a long time of talking.
Thanks again. With respect to the granting of rights when you agree to the contract, and then their software is going to pull a lot of the data that you've said, yeah, you can have access to my Bluetooth devices and this information. Is there anything out there that does aliasing for personal stuff? Like when they request this, tell them no or give them some false stuff to devaluate the data that they're retrieving?
Now, I haven't looked into that. It might be. So if someone knows, I'm not sure. Now, as far as, I haven't seen it, but I didn't research that. So if we think about it, if you've thought about it, it's probably there. Okay. I guess that's it. Hopefully I didn't bore you with this. Like I said, it was old school, dealing with new risks.